Alright, so now I gotta start getting ready to lay down these cross braces, or whatever you want to call them. So I've decided that I'm gonna be spacing them at every foot. And this is 8 feet long, so there's gonna be a stud every 12 inches on the center. So I'm gonna mark this out every 12 inches now. Alright, now I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. And now, because this is a workbench and this isn't anything that needs to be too perfect, I'm not going to go super crazy about making everything perfect. So, yeah, we should be fine. Okay, so as you can see, I have everything laid out somewhat. As you can see, I've loosened my securing strap. I've marked out 12 inches on center across this 8-foot length for all these cross members. And yeah, all I need to do now is just put these in here. I'll tighten up that cross member and then we'll start securing these on here. So just as a little bit of persuasion, in case I need it, I do have my homemade wood mallet. Let's start lining these up. No issues there. Okay, so clearly you guys can see that I've changed the way that I'm tacking on each one of these cross members. I originally, as you know, I had it laid flat on the table, but I just didn't like the way it was going together. I didn't screw anything in yet, but I was just looking, and even though it was laying flush on the table, it was hard to ensure that each one of these was perfectly flat with these pieces, these rails here. So what I'm doing now is just standing vertically, and I've, of course, remarked every 12 inches on my top runner there, and I'm just lining each one of these up flush by hand. I'm going to make sure they're lined up and flush on one side, then I'm going to flip it around. Of course, I'm going to make sure they're roughly lined up on the bottom as well, but I just feel better doing it this way because I know that each one of these is going to be perfectly flat according to my eyes, which my eyes are pretty good. And then I'll just flip it around, as I said, and just line up that other side, throw 2 screws in there, and we should be good to go. So it is a little bit more lengthy process, but it's going to ensure that I have a better quality product at the end. Alright, so I have the top side screwed down, and each and every one of those pieces is perfectly flush. When I go to lay that plywood down on top, there's going to be no gaps. Everything's going to be perfect. And granted, it's taken me some time to do it, but I've had the Sirius XM blast and just enjoying my time out here. So now I got to flip this over, and I need to do the other side now. Also, on a side note, you can see I've added 2 more straps, and that's just to make sure that this gets screwed down nice and tight. You can see I finished fastening all these cross members here. Each of them has 2 screws on either end. And so the framework for the table is all set to go. Now the next thing I need to do is figure out what I'm doing with the leg situation. And I already do have that figured out. I would have liked to use 4x4s, but 4x4s are a little more expensive than purchasing 2 2x4s. So I'm going to take 2 2x4s, fasten them together, and make a makeshift 4x4. And I'm going to be using 4 legs, 1 in each corner. And I think I'm going to have plenty strength because, I did decide to use 2x6s as my main runners. So, not worried about the table bowing at all. And, I'm not going to be putting a lot of weight on this table anyway, but I think that should be plenty for my intended purposes. And yeah, so I'm going to start working on those legs. I'm going to leave this standing right now so I have enough room to work on the legs right here. So let's get started on the legs. Alright, so I've done my calculations. The welding table is a little bit higher than 37 3/4 inches. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to build this table to 37 3/4 inches. I think it'll be better to build it just a hair lower, and worst comes to worst, all I need to do is, if I want them perfectly, at the same height, all I need to do is just throw a little shim underneath some of these legs, and I think I can bring it right up and be fine with that. So the welding table is 37 3/4 inches high. I'm using 1/2 inch plywood on top, so I just needed to subtract that, and that would leave me with 37 1/4 inch legs. And I'm about to get my legs going here. I've kind of roughed out the 2 leg sections, which one's here and one's here, and in each section I'm going to I'm going to screw in 5 screws, 2 near the ends and 1 in the center. And the only thing that kind of stinks is these screws are, they're pretty long and they're going to stick out at the bottom, so I will need to chop that little piece off. And I think I'm going to also have to pre-drill these holes, which is it's just going to slow me down a little bit, but you know what? Hey, I'd rather take the extra time and make sure that I don't cause any type of cracking than, have time come later where I kind of wish that I had pre-drilled these holes. So I'm going to get to work doing this, make sure everything's lined up. Probably start in the center and work my way out. So that almost sums it up for this leg. As you can see what I did, I put 5 screws in each leg. There's 2 leg sections out of these 2 lengths of 2x4s. After I screwed them in, I flipped it over. I used a cutoff disc just to cut off the tip of the screws that were protruding the other side. And I took a flat disc and ground it down nice and smooth, so that way nobody cuts or nicks themselves on those screw tips. So now what I got to do, I got to get 2 more pieces of 2x4 and I got to repeat the process, and then I'll move the miter saw back over here. We'll cut these leg sections to the proper length, and then we should be good to fasten these onto the table, and eventually we can move on to the plywood, so stay tuned. Alright, so I finished screwing together the second leg. It's all finished. Cut off the screw end tips and ground them down smooth. So now I'm going to start cutting these leg sections to the proper lengths. $37.25 on the money. All right, 2 more to go.